has written in to ask, should I be using a 22 as my self-defense carry gun? Now, before we fan the flames of this caliber debate, let me let you know that we have a gun giveaway going on right now. You can enter for free, but it ends really soon. So click the link in the description down below to reveal which brand new gun you could win. So this is one of many ongoing debates in the firearms community about whether or not someone should use a 22 caliber pistol as a defensive weapon. Historically, firearms chambered in 22 caliber have been used for fun or for training new gun owners, training children, but should you carry a 22 long rifle for self-defense? Ultimately, I can't answer that question for anyone. It's a personal decision based on need, ability, affordability, and potentially a host of other reasons. But I can share a few thoughts and perhaps some items to consider. Using a 22 for self-defense is one of those topics that causes a lot of discussion and divergence within the firearms community. Some would claim that a 22 long rifle is quote-unquote better than nothing. Others would argue absolutely no way. I suppose I fall somewhere in between on the spectrum. While I believe that a 22 round could certainly stop a threat, whether from a physical aspect or a psychological aspect or both, it's just not as large and powerful as centerfire counterparts. So let's face it, the 22 is just more mild-mannered than it is hard-hitting. All in all, the cartridge, which is more than 150 years old, was not designed for personal protection. So in a dynamic critical incident, there is already increased potential for miss under extreme stress. Using a 22 caliber pistol might also increase the possibility that the projectile won't penetrate through the threat's clothing and deeply enough to cause the physical reaction needed to stop the threat. Using a 22 also increases the chances that even a well-placed shot might not even be felt by the attacker, who is also experiencing that adrenaline rush during the fight. For these reasons and more, a 22 might be an option, but it's not a solution. Perhaps some of the best reasons for using a 22 is that a person who wants to use a 22 as self-defense has perhaps something like weak, frail, or injured hands, or they can't otherwise use any bigger round. And again, this falls back into the better than nothing category. Any gun is better than no gun, but a 22 is certainly not perfect. Think of the 22 as a starting point, not an ending point. Use it for training, use it for confidence building. However, what you want to do is use that 22 to help you build the skills and get the experience so that you can handle a larger caliber for your defensive pistol. On the positive side for carrying a 22, this firearm is likely to hold more rounds than a larger caliber handgun. 22 can also be easier and more fun to train with. It's relatively lightweight, plus there will be a lot less felt recoil and less noise. All of that can translate into being easier to use for defensive purposes as well. Many gun owners also love the fact that 22 long rifle rounds are less expensive. So it's not as draining on the bank account to train and practice and shoot a lot. It's also not as draining physically to run a 22. However, because of the lower power and a potential for extraction issues, a 22 can sometimes be finicky and inconsistent, which makes for possible malfunctions. That's okay for plinking targets, but it's unacceptable for defending lives. Ultimately, bad guys won't care what round you have chambered. In fact, they likely won't know what round you have chambered. But what they will know and care about is that you have a firearm for self-defense and that you are trained, proficient, and willing to use it to defend life. The mindset is critical, and no matter what caliber you choose, do your best to avoid conflict and use good judgment and apply situational awareness to keep out of dangerous situations. Training is also mandatory, even if it's not required by your state. Any firearm is limited by the extent of the skill of the person wielding it. So be sure to work through malfunction clearance drills and be prepared to quickly and safely access your gun, get it up on target, and engage the threat. Certainly, if you're using a 22, you're going to want to engage multiple times. That means fire multiple shots. Additionally, with 22 pistols, be sure to keep it well maintained and use quality ammunition. And always test your ammo in your everyday carry gun before you trust your life to it. Again, using a 22 pistol is not ideal. Understand that. But it might be the only option you have to defend yourself. And certainly 22 caliber projectiles can and have been lethal. People have been shot and killed with .22 pistols. It might not provide the effectiveness the same as larger caliber handguns. You should use the largest caliber that you can comfortably shoot. Want to know the 3 biggest mistakes when carrying a handgun? Then click on the video next to me to reveal all 3 mistakes. Mistake number 2 may shock you. Everybody has their own cardinal rules for what they're going to do when they're carrying a gun, but right now I'm going to give you 3 things that you must never do